Hi everyone. This video is slightly different from usual, since today I want to complain about something Nintendo has left aside on the Wii U, but not on the 3DS or the Switch, and they've had plenty of time to fix it. First though, I need to give some backstory on what I'm actually talking about. You might have noticed that your copies of ARMS, Splatoon 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons and Super Mario Maker 2 received updates all at the same time fairly recently. On your 3DS, you might have also noticed that Mario Kart 7 received an update for the first time in 10 years. Nintendo provided very vague information on these updates, but they are all connected. There was also updates bundled in with major updates for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, likely Nintendo Switch Sports and likely Splatoon 3, which are also connected to these. For those updates, they generally didn't provide any information on it at all since it was bundled in with other game updates. All these updates that you've just heard about is to patch a major security vulnerability in the netcode of these games. However, there's two games I didn't mention here, and that's because Nintendo has neglected them and refused to patch it, which is the only reason why I'm making this video. Anyways, let's go into a bit more detail about this security vulnerability. The vulnerability in question is named DNL Buffer Pwn, and it was first discovered on the 8th of August 2021 in Mario Kart 7 by a prominent modder of the game. It was later disclosed on the 14th of April of last year for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This vulnerability was disclosed publicly on the 22nd of December 2022, after gaining permission from Nintendo, and you can find it under the following CVE ID, basically just a long ID to classify security issues in software, CVE 2022-47949. You can also find it under a GitHub page where I'm using most of the information from which I'll link in the description of this video. The vulnerability allows a hacker to remotely execute code, commonly referred as RCE or remote code execution, by just having an online game with someone. This gets quite technical from here, so you might want to look at the GitHub page yourself, since I'm not going to be able to explain this well enough to you. The way this works is by causing a buffer overflow in the network buffer class in the network library ENL, referred to as net in Mario Kart 7. This class contains two methods. A method is simply just another name for a function in programming, and if you don't know what that is, it's a command that executes a set of instructions, often with parameters as well, named add and set, which fills a network buffer with data from other players. However, neither one of these methods check that the data can actually fit in this buffer, which causes an overflow. Since this data is somewhat controllable, an attacker can cause an overflow to happen. I should probably explain more about a buffer overflow, and I've asked a friend to help explain it in simpler terms.
A buffer overflow occurs when a program tries to store more data in a temporary storage area, called a buffer, than it is intended to hold. Imagine you have a bucket that you use to carry water. The bucket has a certain size and can only hold a certain amount of water.
Anyways, if this overflow is done properly, a victim may not even know that an attacker is now executing code on their system. An example provided was starting part of a custom firmware installation on the 3DS. Just imagine what else an attacker could do with this. With that explained, I should now point out the two games Nintendo neglected and failed to patch. These are Splatoon and Mario Kart 8. Yes, they are both Wii U games, and that's probably why they didn't get patched, but that isn't a way to treat your customers at all, Nintendo. To put this into perspective, both of these games are in the top 10 best-selling games on Wii U, and therefore, it's a good idea to patch this. Nintendo has had practically a month to patch this, since the last patch they released for this was for Mario Kart 7 on the 13th of December. In fact, let me just put this into consideration. Pretendo Network, which is a replacement for the Nintendo Network service, put out patches for users with custom firmware on the 25th, less than 4 days after it was disclosed publicly. Meanwhile, Nintendo has had this sitting on their desks for months. It's a big insult to those who supported Nintendo at their darkest hour. Also, what's interesting to note about this, is that in the GitHub page for this exploit, there was originally an example of it in Mario Kart 8, along with an example in Mario Kart 7, but that was removed shortly after and replaced with some text saying it works fairly similar to Mario Kart 7, and the video was made private. Don't you think this is a bit weird? Perhaps Nintendo has no plans to patch this and therefore the authors of the vulnerability decided to remove the video so people didn't know how to take advantage of it as easily. I should also mention that these aren't just some games with a dead online scene, which definitely happened to Smash for Wii U, which has more sales than Splatoon. These are the top 2 most played Wii U games online, based on tests on how long it takes to get into a match on YouTube. In fact, I'll put the seriousness of why this needs to be patched as soon as possible into a bigger picture. CVSS is essentially a scoring system for how severe a security vulnerability is, and this issue got a 9.8 out of 10, making it a critical bug. Nintendo simply cannot have a serious bug like this in their games, they just can't. As a YouTuber who plays these games, around 250 and 350 hours respectively, and makes videos on these games, and has an unmodded Wii U console, although to be fair I did just set up CTGPR, which is a great modification by the way, I urge Nintendo to patch this as soon as possible. Please don't let this be another example of how badly you treat your fanbase. There are already too many examples, which include how you've ruined the Smash community. I really appreciate it if you made it all the way to the end. If you found this informative, consider sharing so other people know about this and that we spread awareness to Nintendo that this is not okay at all. I apologize if the title I chose was a bit clickbaity by the way. I would like to give a thank you to Pablo MK7 and all the other researchers that helped disclose this vulnerability. You can find it on the GitHub page linked in the description. I would also like to thank my friend CSQRL, who helped explain a buffer overflow in simpler terms.